Over 80 balance changes are coming with this new Brawl Stars update. Let's go over them. To start off with this, we got the buffs with Piper. She got a health buff and a damage buff. She needed the health buff because there's just way too much aggression and she's just too squishy to deal with it. And the damage buff will help out because her interactions will change when all the brawlers got buffs to their health. So she couldn't two-shot many brawlers like she used to do. So now she'll be the good sniper that she once was. Next up, we got another sniper, which is Mandy. She's getting a damage buff and a buff to her star power shield, which when she stands still, she gets a shield activation. Honestly, her interactions won't change too much because there's like many brawlers with 6,000 health that she competes against, and this is not gonna help to two-shot them. She needed a buff to her super because once they nerfed her hypercharge damage and every brawler got a health buff, she just fell off completely. So I think they needed to buff her super instead. Next up, we got Gale, who's getting a damage buff to his super and a supercharge rate buff from his super. I feel like he's gonna be very good after this change because whenever they mess with his supercharge rate, he just becomes super annoying and overpowered. He might be able to change supers much more easily, and that's when he becomes dangerous, especially with his hypercharge. Next up, we got a simple buff to Tara, increasing her reload speed by 10%. For some reason, her reload speed was just always way too slow. This is a nice change. And there's also Lou getting a projectile size buff by 20%. His projectiles were way too hard to hit sometimes, so this is greatly appreciated. Next up, we got Shelly, who's getting a buff to her buffied version of her first star power, Shell Shock. With that being that the radius of the explosions left behind is being increased. And she's also getting a reduced cooldown on her first gadget as forward, and that's going from 20 seconds to 16 seconds. And we have another classic brawler being buffed, and that being Dynamite. He's getting a reduced cooldown on his satchel charge gadget from 23 seconds to 20 seconds, and he's getting a 12.5% increase in his reload speed. He honestly deserves a buff on that overpowered gadget because there's just too much aggression for a brawler like Dynamite to deal with, so he definitely needs this buff. Next up, we got a buff to Lori, not Larry. His damage per pellet is going from 300 to 400, and his health is going from 6,000 to 6,600. He definitely needed that damage buff because he was one of the worst pets in the entire game. 300 damage is just pitiful. And another brawler who gets a buff to their pet is Juju, which its health is going up from 7,200 to 8,000. And that means the hypercharged version of her pet is going from 8,640 health to 9,600 health. Personally, I thought her pet had way too much health, but I can see why they're buffing it because she needs a better way of defending herself against all this aggression in the meta. Next up, we got Carl, whose damage is going from 1,480 to 1,640. Carl was already a pretty consistent niche pick brawler, so after this buff, he might become meta. Another brawler who's getting a buff is Sprout, which his reload speed is going to be increased by 11.76%, and his damage is going from 2,080 to 2,200. He might become annoying to face up against after these changes, but he honestly deserves it. There's just too much aggression in the meta, like I said before many times. And we got another thrower that's getting more buffs, which is Barley. His projectile speed on his super is being increased by 13%, and on his hypercharge is being increased by 9.3%. Basically, this means that his bottles are going to land much faster. These are great changes because I felt like his super bottles just wouldn't hit anybody since they would just be in the air for so long. Next up, we got Gray, who's getting a damage buff and a gadget buff. His damage is going from 2,320 to 2,560, and his piano gadget lands 40% faster. Personally, I think he needed a buff to his projectile size more because his shots are just way too hard to hit sometimes. Nevertheless, these are pretty good buffs for a low DPS brawler. Next up, another brawler who's getting a damage buff is Charlie, whose damage is going from 1,600 to 1,800. I was playing her a couple days ago and she feels pretty good to use. She can counter all the aggressive brawlers in the meta. It's just that her damage was kind of hindering her, so now she could probably be meta. And once again, Pearl gets another reduction to how much heat she consumes per attack, which is going down by 15.5%. And I don't think this will really do much for her because they've done this buff many times and she still just isn't very good. Her damage just kind of sucks. And Surge is getting a movement speed buff by 4.6% in his first stage. This was a much needed change because his movement speed in stage 1 is just terrible. And we got Star Nova, who is getting 4 buffs. Her health is going from 7,400 to 7,800. Her damage with her ranged attack is going from 1,080 to 1,320. Her damage in her melee form is going from 2,000 to 2,200, and her healing with her second star power is going from 324 to 468. Of course, when they release a brawler that isn't S tier, they go ahead and buff him a million times. They did the same thing with Nadia, and she was S tier for like months. Anyways, Buzz is getting a buff on his supercharge rate and is going up by 4.1%, and his hypercharge rate is going up by 20%. Spike is getting a pretty big damage buff, going from 980 damage to 1,200 damage. You'll see why they did did this later in the video. Griff is getting some buffs to his useless second gadget, Coin Shower. His damage per tick is being increased from 400 to 600, and his duration is going up from 5 seconds to 6 seconds. Still, who's going to use this gadget when the first gadget exists? But also his first star power fires faster now. And lastly on the buff list, we got Damian. And I know these buffs seem kind of scary, but he's getting a rework, so you'll see why they changed his damage later in the video. But anyways, his damage on his speakers is going from 1200 to 1600, and his hypercharge damage is going from 800 a second to 1200 a second. And now onto the nerf list. And the first brawler we got on this list is Surge. His bonus speed on his second stage is going down by 17.6%. This is to compensate with the bonus speed he got with his first stage. And this isn't a very good trade-off at all. 17% less speed on his second stage for only 4% buff on his first stage. Like, why does Surge deserve a nerf out of all brawlers? But the next brawler we have actually deserves nerfs, that being Colette. Her first gadget cooldown is going from 17 seconds to 22 seconds. The damage reduction on her second star power is going from 75% to 60%. Her supercharge rate is going down by 10%, and her supercharge rate from super is going down by 10%. Why didn't they nerf the first gadget more than just a cooldown nerf? The fact that her gadget pierces so she can hypnotize people behind the walls is just so overpowered. And we got two nerfs to Crow. One of them might genuinely make him terrible. The one me and people are concerned about is his spread being increased by 77.77%. This is what his attack will look like after these changes. Look at how big that spread is. You're gonna have to actually aim your shots, because before you wouldn't need to aim your shots because the projectiles would spread so tightly. Now they're spread so far apart that you're actually gonna have to aim your shots like a marksman would. This will kill Crow if they roll out this change. Anyways, his return damage on his hypercharged Buffy attack is being reduced from 20% to 40% of his total damage. I don't think this was really needed as well, because his damage wasn't that much better with this boomerang attack. Next up, we got a nerf to Leon's lollipop drop gadget, and it's going from 3000 health to 2000 health. This was a pretty good buff since it had way too much health. Next up, we got Mortis, and he's getting 3 nerfs. His first gadget cooldown is going from 15 seconds to 18 seconds. The bonus damage on his first gadget is going from 50% to 30%, which by the way means that his bonus damage is going from 3000 to 2600. And the heal and damage he does with the second gadget goes from 1520 to 1400. I definitely agree with the first gadget's damage being nerfed, because 3000 damage with the Mortis attack and he can snipe you, that just was way too toxic. However, why are they nerfing the damage on the second gadget? Was that really a problem? Like, who's using it to actually damage people? People are only using it just to refill their ammo back up and get away from sticky situations. Another Buffy brawler getting more nerfs, that being Edgar, which is very deserved. His first gadget's cooldown is being decreased from 14 seconds to 18 seconds. The heal and takedown on his second star power is going from 30% of his total health to 20%, and his hypercharge rate is going down by 17.5%. This was so deserved. Why do they make one of the most annoying, skillless brawlers in the game S tier? We got Mina receiving even more nerfs. This brawler just can't catch a break. Her damage on her third attack is going from 4000 damage to 3600 damage, and them nerfing her third attack also indirectly nerfs her healing star power, and that's going from 2000 healing to 1800 healing. They just keep nerfing her damage. Like, might as well just take the damage dealer out of her title, because she doesn't even do that much damage anymore. And they're nerfing the duration of her shield gadget once again from 1.5 seconds to 1 second. Dude, this gadget went from being 3 seconds long to 1 second long. One day it's probably just gonna be half a second. Why do they keep nerfing this gadget? A gadget with a 20+ second cooldown, and it only lasts for a second. I don't really see the use in using this gadget after this nerf. 1.5 seconds was like the sweet spot. It was enough time to protect you from like a Colt super. What is a 1 second shield gonna protect you against? We've got nerfs to Chester, with that being his super damage is going from 3760 damage to 3200 damage, and that also affects his hypercharge super. The damage boost that he gets from his jelly beans gadget is going from 25% extra damage to 20% extra damage, and the reload boost he gets from that gadget is also going down by 25%. That reload speed boost that he get from the jelly bean gadget was just insane. Ruffs is getting a 12.5% reduction on his hypercharge rate. This is to tone him down to ranked and pro level games, because you can go an aggro brawler in your comp and you can just give him free hypercharges with Ruffs. It's pretty toxic. Next up, we got nerfs to Meeple's first gadget, Rage Quit. It's going from 18 second cooldown to a 20 second cooldown, and its radius is being reduced by 20%. Yeah, it had a pretty big radius, and you can just stun enemies from very far away. I can see why they toned this down. Next up, we got a nerf to Shade, and his hypercharge rate is going down by 15%.
30%. Shade is one of my least favorite brawlers to face against because he just gets his hypercharge so fast, so this should definitely tone him down. Lumi just got reintroduced back into the meta and she's already received some nerfs. Her duration on her ice gadget is going from 3.9 seconds to 3 seconds, and the size of it is going down by 14.2%. Nadia gets some well-deserved nerfs after being in the meta for multiple months at this point. Her landing damage on her supers is going from 1300 damage to 800 damage. The supercharge rate from the super is going down by 37.5%. That is huge. And her hypercharged snake's HP is going down from 4,000 to 3,000. Those snakes just had way too much health. The cooldowns of both of Pierce's gadgets are both being increased. The cooldown on his first gadget is going from 18 seconds to 22 seconds, and on his second gadget is going from 12 seconds to 18 seconds. That's pretty big. Ash is getting reworked. His hypercharge rate is going down by 30%. However, he will be given the tank trait, which will make it so that he can automatically charge both his super and his hypercharge just by taking damage. Ash really needed this tank trait. He's been considered F and D tier for like months now. Personally, I thought he was always a very underrated brawler. I could always pop off with him sometimes. Okay, here's the thing with Spike. They buffed his damage, but they nerfed his supercharge rate by 16.9%. This is to compensate with the damage buff that he received. I never really had a problem with his supercharge rate, so this is actually a pretty good trade-off. The exposure radius with Griff's piggy bank gadget is going down by 16.66%. This is a pretty good buff because he could like just open the map up way too easily. And for the final nerf, this isn't really a nerf, but it's just a rework. Damian's speakers now break after one bounce. That means if you launch an enemy into a speaker, it will break. But instead of the speakers doing 1,200 damage, it does 1,600 damage. So you might still do enough damage to kill an enemy. It might change some interactions. So I don't really think this is that bad of a trade-off. More damage, but the speakers break after being launched into them. But that is all the balance changes coming up in June. Let me know what you think about these changes in the comment section below. I'll be sure to respond to them.